The views shared in this episode represent Kelly and Kendra, not our mamas, partners, church, job, or sponsors.
I feel like we just start off with a word of prayer.
See, this is what I'm talking about.
Now, you know, we don't always have the Holy Ghost over here.
And keep in mind, Tanika, the record was already pressed. So I'm going to tell you now, Leah, you're going to find a way to put that. I know how she get down.
And will.
Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. We are excited to have our first official guest at the time of this recording, a friend of ours who we will introduce shortly, but we hope that you're enjoying the podcast so far and commenting in the group chat on things you want us to talk about in the future. So join us in welcoming Tanika Harris, who is new to some, but known to many. I thought I'd kick it off with a question. Tanika, what is your first memory of meeting both I and Kendra?
So thank you for having me. The first memory of meeting Kelly King Jackson specifically is through Kendra and working at the United Methodist Church in the general agency for mission. And you specifically blew me away with your love and intellect and your compassion for human beings. And so we were working on developing a program for young people. And it's funny because I know you all talk about your group chat. I am also in a group chat with all of my mentors from Global Ministries. And
that's so cute.
And so I am the youngest in that group chat, and the age next is 72. So it ranges from 72 to 82. And it is an amazing group chat. And we were just talking about you. And one of the things that they talked about is how important it was for us to start a young people program for the youth, by the youth. The youth need to be doing this. And so that was my first memory of meeting Kelly. And Kendra, I don't even remember Kendra not being in my life because Kendra and I go back to nursery at the time, Macedonia Baptist Church in Pittsburgh, singing in the kids' choir together. Funny story, though, about Kendra, we had to wear black and white, typical.
Oh, God.
Typical, right? That was the uniform for ushering and for singing in the choir. Black bottoms, white tops. And at that time, we had to wear skirts for the ladies, and for the gentlemen, they had to wear pants. And that's what the uniform was. And that was mandated. Kendra wore black and white striped top, a black bottom, and she said, because you said black and white, and I'm wearing black and white, and this was elementary Kendra. So Kendra has been consistent in all her ways. In all her ways, she has been consistent. So that is a funny memory that I have. Kendra has always been who she is.
Hey, what can I say?
I love it so much. I'm curious we'll start with you, Ken. What is the difference between y'all as church girlfriends back then and y'all as recovery church girls friends now?
Well, Tanika is very much still, she's still a very much holy church girl.
Holy?
You holy. Holiness, what they say, holiness is still right. Not to say I'm not holy, but she's still very much more, she has a critique of the church, particularly the Black church, because that's where we're from. Don't get me wrong. She's not just acquiescing to the nonsense, but she has a lot more empathy and a lot more patience, particularly with the patriarchy, than I do, and than our other dear best friend sister Danelle has. But our journey has been a very interesting one. So, like Tanika said, we grew up in church together. I've known Tanika since she was not even in elementary school. She probably was in kindergarten or less. And I was one of those kids that if I was older than you, I don't care if I was 6 months older than you, I was older than you. And I was like, who's this little girl? You can't hang with me. I'm 2 years older than you. What you talking about? So, I was more like, the mean big cousin type, to the younger ones. But we grew up together, and it was just more like family than anything. And then as we got older, I was living in New York. As you know, Kelly, you were my roommate. And eventually Tanika moved to New York to go to college. And I won't get into all the steamy details of her winding road of life. But she ended up returning to New York, and our relationship grew even closer. She was working for, like she said, United Methodist Church. She eventually joined Brown Memorial, the church that I went to in Brooklyn. And her children, who grew up partially there in Brooklyn at that church, are my nieces and nephews. At least all three of them are, but the older two were there with us in Brooklyn. And so it was just family. She became my sister. So we've been through all the ups, the highs, and the lows and the lows. And so our relationship evolved in church spaces, both as a child and as an adult. And now also we are, in addition to being family, business partners as well. I like to do, unlike many people, I like to do business with my friends. I have a business with Kelly and I have a business with Tanika and Danelle.
You bold and courageous.
I'm discerning.
Oh,
Because it ain't everybody. But anyway, go ahead, Kel. Sorry.
So, Tanika, did that feel like accurate for where y'all are now from where you started?
Absolutely. The only thing I will add is that discerning Kendra she is very discerning, but she's also extremely patient, because I was a lot to deal with. I was a lot, and not intentionally a lot, but because of early on as a child in the church. And what I will say is my mother was very religious, and it's different than spiritual. My mother is no longer with me. So I can say what I want. No, I'm just playing. My mom is no longer with me. And yes. And
don't let the auntie
I know.
Oh, wait.
But, yeah, Shirley Jean is no longer with me, but she was very religious, but she did the best that she could. And so growing up in a very religious household, I did not understand. I didn't have critical thinking skills. And so I just did what I was told and never thought through any implications and what could happen. And so I made some very interesting decisions from teenage years through young adult years, working and still trying to figure it out. And the beauty of it is, once I hit rock bottom, I looked up and Kendra was still there. Many people left, but Kendra remained. Now, I'm sure I caused a few gray hairs, a lot of extra stress and all the things, but that I know, and I can say that was also largely part of her upbringing as well. It didn't feel good to her, but she never left, and that was very, very helpful.
But look, I appreciate you, and don't have me crying on my own podcast, but I'm also not a walk in the park. I feel like I've gotten better and more amenable and more. It's wild. I'm deeply patient, long-term patient. In the short time, in the moment, I am not patient at all. I've had to work at that. And so, it just wasn't a one-way street. Can I take a step back and ask a question?
Yeah.
Tanika Harris, who are you?
I am a disruptor. I am a recovering people pleaser. And I'm a woman of faith. I have great faith, immense faith. And it's so funny because you're asking me who I am. And I remember even 5 years ago, if you asked me that, I would say, well, I'm a teenage mom and I'm this, right? And so I would throw all those labels in there. And I can gladly say with my faith and therapy, I have a sense of who I am and who I'm not. And my decisions don't define who I am anymore.
Ooh,
come on in here.
I need a hanky. Oh my God, I need a hanky.
No, stop it. Like, and you, I mean, and it would be different if you all didn't know my story and didn't know my children and all the things. And there were times when we were in Puerto Rico, we were working at the United Methodist Church, and I'm down there with you all, and my daughter was at home being abused. And, and so we still had to like just show up and I didn't even realize what was happening. And so those are things that I've had to reckon with and understanding that. And And so, yeah, like this is not fake. This is what it is. And this is my authentic
Mhm.
journey. But also recognizing that I had people in my life who did not give up on me. And I know that was
Mhm.
divine as well, because nobody but the big God, and not this little God that we put in this
Mhm.
little box, but nobody but the big God would allow a Tanika to have people like a Kelly and a Kendra and a Danelle to be in my circle. So like that, I don't take that lightly.
Mhm.
Can I ask one more question, Kel? No.
Yeah.
So you talked about being a woman of faith, and you talked about being raised in a very religious home. And we can talk about your own spiritual walk in a minute, but can you talk about the role that the church has played in shaping who you are, both as a child, young adult, and as a current adult, and how the church shows up in your life?
Can I be honest? Like it's still shaping me. So from where I was at Macedonia, and that's what I remember. I know we were at another church prior to Macedonia, but at Macedonia, we were the poor family. We were the family that the church helped and everybody helped. What Kendra didn't say is like I used to get her hand-me-downs, her and Danelle's shoes and clothes up until I was bigger than both of them. And that was a sad day.
Cause see, I don't remember that. I don't remember. She keeps telling me that. I don't remember her
Listen, I
ever
had all
getting
y'all
any clothes.
hand-me-downs.
Cause mamas don't always
Yeah,
tell, right? Our mamas they don't want to bring embarrassment. Well, let
yeah,
me just say, my mother, she don't want to bring embarrassment, so she gonna slip it to you, but she not gonna, tell the whole church. And so
Mhm.
sometimes I think our families were doing things for others and in community that we will have no idea
yeah,
ever.
yeah.
Mhm.
And yeah, so like we were that family that the church helped often. And when I say the church, I'm not talking about like the church, the institution, but the people, which is really what the church is. So like my Lola, right? Mommy Biggs, like the church helped us on a consistent basis. We have another friend, Tiffany, who's doing great. Her dad would pick us up, take us to church because we would catch three buses to get to church and all the activities. And on a Sunday, the bus didn't run well. It was like every hour and a half. And so Tiffany's dad would come and pick us up and take us. And I remember there were many times after church service, he was a deacon at the church. He would then take us to the grocery store so we could get food. And I didn't realize until later, like he was buying food for us. And that was happening weekly. So once I was able to articulate what was happening, and I'm just like, wow, we're the family. And then I took a spin, not for the good, but I was just like, I need to prove that I belong, and I'm no longer the family that needs to be helped. I'm no longer the family that needs to be helped. And so I then began to become this other person that I really wasn't, to try to conform and to prove how, look, I don't need you all to help me anymore. I'm grateful for it, but look, I can hold my own, but dying on the inside, killing myself trying to please and not saying no and doing all the things and trying to be this thing that I thought needed to be. The other piece in the church is that what I was taught is that a whole family is a family with a mother, a father, who are married, and then the children and all those things,
Whew.
right? And here I come, 15, and I pop up pregnant. And so I've already embarrassed my mother to the point it's so not funny. But my mama was off the hook, y'all. Like Shirley Jean did not play. Wonderful woman of God, I tell you. But when I got pregnant, she left Macedonia because she said, I don't want to fool up with them folks because they say something smart and I know they will. I'm going to be in here fighting. So my mother left the church and went to another church. So I'm 15, pregnant at this church by myself. And I continued to go because literally God just didn't tell me I needed to leave. And so I kept going, belly getting bigger. I'm still going. And what I knew is that the whole family, the complete family, looks like this, and this is what it should be. And I've already made a mockery of my mother and everything that she tried to instill in me, right? And then I go on this quest as into my young adult years, searching for a husband because that was the goal. The goal was searching for a husband. I remember writing a paper in school because I went back to school because I did not finish from the first time I went. And one of my papers was talking about a whole family and being a whole, and that's what I wanted. I wanted that so desperately. And my professor challenged me like a mug, and I got mad at her and I walked out. And she was like, so you're telling me you're not whole right now? You're telling me you need to be in a relationship to be whole? And I was like, yes, because that's what I was taught. Like, that's all I knew. And I did not have the critical thinking skills that I really wish I had, but I didn't. And so that in my mind, just searching and searching and searching. And then what that did was it led me into one bad relationship after another relationship. But the intent for me was so pure. It was just, I really just wanted to be whole, and I wanted to do what was right. And I wanted to fix the wrong decisions that I made. Now, my daughter was not, there's nothing wrong about her, but I wanted to fix that wrong decision by having sex before marriage and having a child out of wedlock and all those things, right, that I was taught were so wrong that should never, ever happen. And so I spent a lot of my years doing that. And child, I kept getting pregnant because I was just a fertile myrtle. And so as I'm sitting here trying to do right by the saints and everything, and my behind ended up pregnant 2 more times. So it was like, you know what? One thing I know how to do is I know how to make a baby. And so, you know, I was just like,
we love your children.
Oh my gosh, you know.
Can I ask you a question? Because this feels very tender to me, I think, because of the work that we've done with young people. Can you tell me how you dealt with the tension between the message you got from the institution of church and the message you got from these amazing humans who stepped in to model what it is to be the church?
Those young people who are now young adults, which is crazy, who are like almost older young adults now, they taught me so much. They taught me by allowing me into their world. And it was a world that I never knew was possible. Watching what they went through in their own individual lives and still showing up in ways. And they challenged me on what the church really is and how big God is. And that was really my first view of the goodness and the glory of God, watching them.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't fully understand it while I was in it. It took years. It took almost a decade once I left it. And I'm like, wow, I get it. Like, I get it now. Just watching how, and even still how they still disrupt. Like, I love following them on social media. I love watching their authentic selves blossom. Some are super duper 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 churchy. Some are the exact opposite. And I love every aspect of every single one of them. And it is a blessing to watch. Oh my God. It's a blessing to watch. It is a blessing to watch.
Shout out to the OG Justice Youth. Yes, we love
And it's
y'all.
spelled Just Us, playing off of the word justice. Just Us. Advocacy at its finest. Yes.
Yes.
I actually have something. So, Tanika, you talked about being a recovering people pleaser. The show was built on being a recovering church girl. We talked about Kendra and discernment. So, as I was listening, I was connecting all these pieces. I'm also listening to you tell your story at the beginning of being pregnant at 15, but committing. I literally wrote this note: being pregnant at 15, but committed to church because God didn't say it was time for you to leave. What has your journey of being a recovering people pleaser been like for you? What has come up in that? What has, emerged from that? What have you learned? What have you learned to appreciate maybe about yourself in ways that you maybe hadn't until you had identified with that aspect of your journey?
I learned that I am enough in any state that I'm in, that I'm enough, whether I'm dealing with depression or whatever, I'm still enough. I learned to really love my voice. And I think I touched on that a little bit because I didn't understand my voice and I wouldn't listen to it. And so listening to my voice and knowing what my voice, knowing what it is and the power that my voice has, I lean in on that now. And I make decisions off of that. And that's something I would have never done 5 years ago, right? Like hitting rock bottom, understanding what I was doing and having language, because I didn't know I was a people pleaser, because I would have told you I was not a people pleaser. So that language is new. I'm just now learning what that is. Like, that's why I was making decisions that I was making. And so having that language now, I am able to, like, there's this thing that I talk about, having discernment. And having discernment is lonely, especially because you can't always explain what I'm feeling, but I'm like, no, there's something there and we need to stay away. And I can't fully understand it. I don't have any facts to add to it to be able to make it make sense for somebody, but that discernment is what I know that I operate in. And so I make decisions in my entire life now moving forward off of my discernment.
I love that.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. I think one of the things that I think has been a biggest theme of my journey with therapy is around guilt and shame, and the guilt and shame that just was unintentionally taught to me because everything was about going to hell, right? And so this idea that I could set a boundary even if somebody needed something from me that I could actually give in on the surface, if it was actually going to cost me something that I didn't have to give inside, I was still doing it, right? And so I had to really learn that it is a gift to be able to set a boundary because there's an expectation of me God doesn't have because God knows I was created in His image, but I ain't Him or her or they, right? So God is God and I am Kelly. And that, to Tanika's point, Kelly is enough. And so being okay with my enoughness means being able to set the boundary, even if somebody's going to be disappointed, somebody needs me, I have a resource, I am not available right now, and being okay with that. So I feel grateful to be able to afford therapy. I feel grateful to have been able to find a therapist that was not in church and using church as the frame because I was very intentional that I didn't need I know how to find a spiritual community. That's not what I was looking for. I needed therapy. And so that has been, I think, key to my being able to really know myself and be who I'm designed to be, not who I was created or shaped to be.
I will say that, as many of you know, I've been a professional student. I was one of those people that went to undergrad, and by the end, I was just like, I'm just trying to get out. And then eventually, I started going back to school. And what really saved me and helped me really to find myself is Black feminist thought, reading Black feminist thinkers, doing Black feminist work. I've been a Black feminist since I was a little girl and didn't even know it, as Tanika could tell you. I was always talking that talk and walking that walk, but to which, like she always says, I did not yet have the language. And so discovering the language of Black feminist thought, discovering Audre Lorde saying, if I didn't define myself for myself, I'd be crunched into other people's fantasies for me and eaten alive. Hearing Zora Neale Hurston, who I consider, even though she didn't consider herself a feminist necessarily or use that language, if you're silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it. Learning about intersectionality, learning about Patricia Hill Collins, learning about bell hooks being so much of the way I think and view the world is through the lens of a bell hooks who both embraced her Christian upbringing and also made space for other ways of thinking and saw the intersections between, the walk of Jesus and the Buddha. And, just to disrupt our understanding of what it means to be a Black woman in a Black family, in a Black community, in Black churches. Black feminist thought helped shape that for me. And so now, I deconstructed a lot, deconstructed my position in my family, deconstructed my religion, deconstructed my relationship to place by coming back to leaving here and coming back. And every place that I've detached myself from or wrestled with, I've always returned back to, but on my own terms. So my relationship with God is on my own terms, not as our disclaimer says, not my mama or my job or my family or my people or my partner or none of that. It's my relationship on my terms. My relationship to the church is on my terms. My relationship to the academy is on my terms. My relationship to my corporate job is on my terms. And Black feminist thought really did that for me. And womanist thought, and womanist, this womanist work allows me to bring my church girl reality that is never going to go away, right? And my Black feminist thought together in a space and have my own exegesis, as they say, or my own kind of theological viewpoint on the world. Yeah, so we talked a little bit about growing up in church and how that has formed you. And we talked about the work you've done with the youth in the church. I'd love to talk about like post United Methodist Church and your relationship to the church. And at your core, you're a community developer and a person who works in community, but you've done it in the church spaces. And can you talk to us about what that experience has been like and how it differs and or is similar to your other work in like nonprofit and community development spaces?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Are you a Black woman in middle management looking to elevate your leadership skills in a safe space? Then listen up, because I have something special just for you. Join a coaching group of like-minded women focusing on emotional intelligence, management skills, and leading in white spaces. In our group coaching sessions, you'll gain leadership skills, tools, and strategies. Plus, you'll gain a powerful network of sisters who understand your journey. No more leaning alone. Ready to take the next step? Visit www.iamkelly to learn more and join a cohort. Let's lead together.
Ooh, child. How much time do we have left? Okay.
Take your time. Take your time.
Take your time.
It's very different. And I'm not going to go the toxic positivity route. So I want to be clear. I had the opportunity to work full-time at a church for 7 years and working at the church that I grew up in. And the job was created for me as a result of the way I was volunteering and the passion that I had and the skills that I had and the skills I acquired from working in that global faith-based organization. And coming home to do the work was even better. Working for a church, I mean, it's not a mega church, but at the time, and this is pre-pandemic, at the time, we had over 4,000 members on the roster, where we had 3 services at one point. Then we mixed it to 2. We took the pews out and had chairs. The pulpit became a stage. There's right. And so like going through that whole evolution, the one thing I will say is that I felt like I took a vow of poverty working there, and being very, very honest. My expenses outweighed my income the entire time for the entire 7 years that I worked. And that was hard, very hard. But at the same time, nothing got turned off. And when I say nothing got turned off, like none of my utilities got turned off. My home was still maintaining. And in the words of my mother, by the grace of God, so everything remained on. Now, it remained on from help with some people who were on this call. But it also, there were people who stood in a gap. The work that I did, I'm very proud of. And I'm proud, and I'm okay with saying that I'm proud. I'm proud to have done that work. And the work was, it was fulfilling. It was gratifying immediately. I received immediate gratification. But it was also hard because what I was able to see is that the 80-20 rule, where 20% of the people do 80% of the work. And that was something that I talked about a lot. I talked about that a lot. And it never felt right to me. But at the same time, the leaders were incredible human people, and not are. But they are incredible human people. And I think that was probably the worst thing for me, because I did not challenge things like I should have. I had a voice at the table, and I did not use my voice to really help move things forward. And when I say that, I mean that because a lot of the leadership were well-intended men, and they had the best intentions, but there were some things that needed to be fixed. And I didn't always feel comfortable saying that, because I'm like, but they're so good. And they got so much on them. They're dealing with so many things. But then I'm taking that on. And then
Yeah.
I'm trying to fix some of these other pieces and I'm trying to cover and I'm guarding the gift, right? That was my goal. And the gift didn't ask to be guarded by me.
Ooh.
So there's these things that,
Mm.
and these are revelations I've gained since I've been gone. I've been gone for what 3.5 years now. And so I've been able to understand that. The other piece
Mhm.
is just understanding that I did not negotiate well for myself. Um, and that came out as I was leaving. And I left on good terms. I did not leave in a bad way, but I did leave abruptly. And I'm okay with sharing that. It was a Sunday, and literally after service ended, there was a wail inside of me, like wailing. I just started screaming, crying literally crying at the top of my lungs. And what I now understand, it was more of a purging that was happening. And I could not stop crying. I couldn't shake it. On my way home, I received text messages from two leaders in the church, and separate text messages, but the same exact message. The same exact message. They don't know, to this day, they don't know that they both sent me the same message. I never shared that with them. And God was just like, your time is up. And that wail was more like mourning, because it was like, because being there was comfortable for me. It was comfortable because it was familiar, not because it was good for me. And so what I knew
Yeah.
was being in that familiar place. And even if it didn't feel good, it was familiar and I knew what to expect, and all of that, right? And so that evening, I went to the group chat and was just like, y'all, it's time. It's time. It's time. God spoke to me very clearly and was just like, your assignment is up. And that I was a hindrance to the growth of the ministry.
Mm.
And I'm like, well, that's jacked up. Like, how, I'm up here busting my butt, I'm doing whatever. And it was just like, I needed to be removed so that way those who are in leadership can see with full eyes, because I kept fixing things. I was that Olivia Pope and I was always fixing and fixing. And so I needed to remove so that way the church can truly grow. And that was hard for
Yeah.
me to take on. But then the other side of it is this: I have 3 children. My youngest is 15. He had the privilege to grow up in that space. And that has helped him so much, because it also helped me as a parent. I didn't have to worry about being at work at a certain time. I didn't have to worry about those things. I didn't have to worry about taking too much PTO or not having enough PTO. If things were going on with him medically, I could send a text and they're like, what do you need? We'll come get you. We're praying for you right now. What does he need? Right. And so I didn't have that stress. And that was so different than how I raised my older 2 children. So I was able to truly put my attention and time into raising my youngest child, Jerry. And Jerry's also a musician. So he was able to be in this incredibly musical space where he now is gigging on his own, and he knows how to do the sound. He knows AV. Like he was just exposed to so much. And I'm grateful that he was exposed to some incredible Black men that he would not have had that complete access to. So I recognize, and so I laugh because I'm like, Jerry got a taste of Just As Youth, and he wasn't a part of it, because I was like, dang, I wish I'm like, he would have been great in Just As Youth. And I'm like, he got a chance to be a part of something like that he doesn't even realize. And Jerry is like a leader's leader. He's an amazing human being. And that was a benefit from working there. But it took me some time to sit back to think through what that looked like, but also recognize that I had more of a voice than I knew when I worked there. But I kept going to the table as if I'm just glad that they're allowing me at the table.
So can we talk? Yeah, I wanted to stop you earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt. I wanted to let you get it all. But just from there, all the way back to you were talking about them being well-meaning Black men or well-meaning men. Can we talk about the gender dynamics involved in all this?
Yeah.
And that even as a lot of this benefited your son and your relationship with your son, even as a lot of this benefited the ministry, how the gender dynamics play and how it impacted you and other women working in the church?
There were moments where it felt like it was an unsafe space for me as a woman working there. And again, I think one of the most dangerous things about it was that was never anyone's intention. That was not their intention. their, their intention was not that at all. And even down to some really small things. So I was over events and all of that. And just, there was an internal event we had. I think we were celebrating the holidays, and I set it up, made it really nice, candy station, all those things. And it was time to break it down. And it was it was, all staff. And when I looked around, all the men were sitting at one table talking, and I'm breaking things up, and just organically the other women staff members were helping. And no one else moved.
The men
did not move. Yeah, some of them slid over so that we can grab it. And again, like, that wasn't, but I was just like, ooh, and it was an innate thing. And I'm like, is this, I was just like, is this really happening? And I remember walking away being upset. I was upset, but I didn't share why I was upset, because I was so upset. I was afraid that if I shared, that it wouldn't be received well. And I did not have the language. And language is important. And plug, I always talk about Kendra with language. I was like, I wish I could just have Kendra around with me everywhere I go, because she always has the perfect language for every situation that I'm in. I don't know about you, but every situation I'm in,
not my own situation.
Listen, every situation, I'm like, dang, if I had the language, because right now I'm just gonna like lash, and it's gonna like, sister, you just tired, you're overwhelmed. And that would happen sometimes too, because when I did express some frustrations, even about other staff members, because I would say, yo, they're full time. They're not working even half as much as I am. Why are we leaning on volunteers more than we're leaning on the people who get paid to be here this whole time? And I would get the, sis, you got a lot on you. Let's take some off your plate, or and not really addressing those things. And so recognizing that was always, I was fighting to not be that angry woman on the job. Yeah. But I was growing, that was growing. It was growing, because I was watching the dynamic change and shift and adjust. And I'm like, yo, and then when the pandemic hit, I'm like, listen, we all in the pandemic. So like, it's not just you and him. And so I'm supposed to show you grace, but I'm not getting that same grace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, men have the vision and lead, and women do the work to make it come into fruition.
Yeah. Only because we've been modeled that is the way, right? Because we know it doesn't work
at all.
It's not serving the men who didn't even think to get up and help, right? They're not in a better place because they have no accountability to it. And then we're frustrated and overworked and lashing out because we just want to be seen, right? We want someone to see our labor and to jump in. And some of this could be that kind of savior thing, right? Like, I want you to be the man of God, right? That you say you're supposed to be. But in our humanity, we have to call out the patriarchy. And for so many of us, we didn't learn how to do that for ourselves and for the men in our lives. So thank you for lifting that up.
Some of us had to go to graduate school and other spaces to do it, while at home we were still catching hell, and while in the church we were still catching hell.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I want to dig in, because this is very important to me. This is the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night. What do you think? I know there's the pandemic. I know there's a particular political moment. I know that the world is changing, and it has been changing. And there's so much to say about how the place of the Black church and Black life has shifted and moved. What role, if any, do you think that the patriarchy, so the Black male patriarchy, what role do you think it has played in the current state of the Black church? And what do you want to see happen as a woman of faith who is still very much in the institution?
So it's a loaded question. I'm going to break it up. What I would like to see happen is it's going to sound a little weird. I would like for the Black church to go back to some of the things that it did before, right? Now, it was deep in patriarchy, but the Black church was the place where people went. That's where social justice, and that's where action happened. That's when people mobilized, and the church is not that anymore. The Black church has grown to play it safe. for the most part, and not using the power that God has given them to use. They are worshiping a small God. The Black church is not looking at God in all of the grandeur and everything that God has to offer, is not tapping into it. And that is very, very frustrating for me. It is very frustrating for me. So what I would love for the Black church to get back to the roots of being the place where it happened. That was the room that it happened. That's where information was shared. That's where gatherings occurred, that place of fellowship. And I think we get so caught up on that fellowship on Sundays or whatever day individuals decide to worship, because after the pandemic, some people worship on Saturdays and different, whatever, right? We're so caught up on that fellowship and trying to draw people in for that day of corporate worship, that we forget about worship in these other ways, because the advocacy and social justice is worship. Educating our folks on what's available to them, that's worship. There's resources, that's worship. And so like that is the piece that's missing. The other side of it is that money does play a factor, because the church is a business. So we can't forget that. The church is a business. And so what I can say to you, one of the beautiful things that I can say about the church that I served is that we never fundraised, because we didn't have to. We didn't have to, because we were very diligent about being good stewards of the money that we had and how we utilize and how we serve the communities, the various communities. And when I say communities, I'm not just talking about geographical community. I group it and I talk about communities of interest, where we had a shared belief, and communities of action, where we're rallied around a shared cause, and geographical location. So that's what I mean by community. We definitely served our communities well while I was there in leadership. And for that, people saw, and folks who were even non-members, they would donate financially. And I'm bringing that up because sometimes decisions are made based upon being able to make a budget. And that is something that has changed. And it's necessary. I recognize that, but there is this piece that we need to reckon with when it comes to having the faith of a mustard seed, and also, doing our due diligence to ensure that we're able to provide the best services we can provide, and having the means to do that and the capacity to do that. But that also means in looking at staffing. Are we overloaded in staff? Are we, right? And so like all of those pieces, and looking at how that works.
The 20-80 rule. Who's the 20 and who's the 80?
Ooh.
Are we seeing a pattern? How does that play into it? We can't be a good steward.
And who's a volunteer and who's on staff?
Yeah. Because don't get me started talking about the way my mama keep going on about being a volunteer, and I'm like, she's doing more work than people that's on staff. That's another story for another time.
So you're going to have to strike that line right there?
No, you ain't. Keep that right in there. She can be mad all she wants.
Ooh, Holy Ghost, Holy Ghost, Holy Ghost.
And to be clear, though, like she is a servant. My Lola is a servant leader,
and she could be. I'm not telling her. I'm not saying.
Yeah, like she is.
Yeah, I'm not saying she shouldn't do it. I'm saying that people who actually are paid to do work at the place should take a look at what she's doing as a volunteer and do some self-reflection.
I think self-reflection is definitely good, and it's necessary, and there's not enough of that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about people just at that church.
Yeah.
I'm saying in general.
Mm-hmm. And there's a pattern of foremothers in our lines who martyred themselves for church.
But she ain't doing that no more, thankfully.
Tuesday, Wednesday. But I think some of that is because of y'all. She's seeing y'all ask the questions and set the boundaries. But a lot of women in my family who martyred themselves for ministry, for service, and they were never appreciated. I think sometimes it's our, I don't say ego from like malicious point, but like there's something in us that's getting fed, right? By being that person who's always showing up, who's the last one there, who's going to jump in when they need somebody to usher or fold the program. And I know I've had to unpack what that looks like and learn how to set boundaries, because I didn't see that done, especially around church.
Yeah.
That's one thing about, and Tanika can attest to this. That's one thing about Cherry Wiley.
Thank
She
you.
worked to the bone, but she set her boundaries and she told the truth, and that's what's missing.
Yeah.
I've seen her say several times, Pastor, I love
You're
you,
wrong.
but you're wrong.
Yes.
And she wasn't going to do anything that didn't sit right with her. If she saw something, I don't care who was doing it and where they was doing it, she called it like it was,
Yes.
and loving it, right?
Mhm.
And that's the part of the servant leader persona that I think is missing, and that women weren't always just demure and
Mhm.
meek about it. Some of them like said, listen, because I am putting in the sweat equity, y'all gonna hear my voice. And that's a piece of it I think that is missing.
Absolutely it is.
I feel like in many ways, because our churches have moved to this kind of new non-denominational frame, which I love, and I was happy that it wasn't caught up in certain policies and procedures and pomp and circumstance. But I do think that some of the evangelical ways about centering the family have shown up that women's voices just look
Mhm.
different. And that like women are allowed to speak boldly if they are dressed a certain way and focus on women matters, women's conferences, But when we talking about big ticket topics, we got to bring in a man. And I feel like the church has regressed, and I hate to keep bringing it up, but I think gender plays a lot in it, and I feel like we've regressed, and we are seeing the fruits of
Yeah.
that.
And we see a lot of our colleagues who felt pressured to be married to be seen at church.
Yep.
Right. My voice is going to be listened to differently because I'm saying it with my husband, even if it was my idea or my
Right.
my contribution. Yeah.
I had a family member tell me, like, I was actually planning on going to medical school when I got out of undergrad. Went to an elite university. But my pastor has suggested that I needed to focus on pouring into my husband. Her pastor told her that. Right?
Yeah.
So I think if we don't reckon with these truths, we can't. And I mean a loving critique. I'm not meaning like throw the baby out with the bathwater. I hate that saying, but you know what I mean. I mean it like the loving critique of like, listen, let's call a thing a thing. And until we can do that, and I can have that conversation, what are we talking about? So not to harp on this stuff, Tanika, because there's more to your life than what you've done into the church and your relationship to the church. What are you doing now? What is your role in society? What does your career look like? What's life look like? What is education like? What do your dreams and goals look like?
Life I've done a 180 all this time, and that I was speaking, my time working at the church. So, I was dealing with these issues of not being enough because I never finished undergrad. And so 27 years later, I graduated from Point Park University with my undergrad degree. I'm now working on my MBA. My 2 adult children, my oldest is married now, and she's given me 5 beautiful grandchildren. There's 5 of them. The oldest is 9. Dear God, the youngest is 3, and they're twins. They live about 10 minutes from me, and they're moving 3 minutes away now. And that is a blessing. And I love them so much.
Gigi.
I'm their Gigi. They are a lot. But my middle child is doing great. He's working. He is finding himself, which is really good. He was the middle child, and he's the introvert of the family, and so it's great to see him coming into his own. And this youngest child of mine, this 15-year-old, I think I'm here to be his momager and Uber driver. I think that's my role with him.
He kind of came here a genius, though. I'm just saying.
He legit has been on fire. And that is so amazing too, because he was birthed from trauma. Like, there was so much trauma. And just to see how he has evolved, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful. And
He gonna be the one to get us out the ghetto. He gonna be rich and famous for something.
Listen, I do believe he would be the one to take care of us. I do. I really believe that.
Oh, absolutely.
And he does have a heart for it, because even now, like Kendra used to tell me, every time I would get like a little extra piece of change, she'd be like, "You are not Santa Claus. Stop acting. Stop trying to help everybody." And Jerry got that. Oh man, like he took us out to eat last night. So he was like, "No, it's on me. It's on me. It's on me. It's on me." And I'm working. I was working for the government for a while. after I left the church. Learned a lot, disrupted a lot, and it was really fun. And I left on great terms, which is good. And I still I'm called on. I'm on a board. I'm on an advisory board for a housing opportunity fund, and where we manage a $10 million budget yearly. And so that's great. And I'm now working at a nonprofit. I'm back in nonprofit. And the beautiful thing about this is that is the full circle moment where when I worked at Global Ministries, I was it was also we did some small philanthropic work, but I now have a greater understanding for the work that I was trying to do then and how I could have done it better and differently, because I was making folks go through jump through hoops for $5,000 for a seed grant, all these reports and all that kind of stuff, you know. So I'm now on the other side of it, and the work isn't hard, but it is a lot. It's not hard. It's in my bag, but it is a lot. And so a lot going in different directions, and I get to create. I'm back to programming and project development, and I'm doing some project management and working with grants and doing some partnership agreements and MOUs and all that good stuff that I moved away from for a while. And so I'm really happy with who I am and who I've become. And I'm happy with my story, because that was something I've been so ashamed of. I've been so ashamed. And when I would see people that knew me when I was in my darkest moment, I would put my head down sometimes, just be like, hey, I'm here. But with that, I am also actively in therapy, and I have therapy every Monday at 1 p.m. virtually. And so
Yeah.
I am very happy to say that that has helped me tremendously. I am very single and happily single. I'm no longer looking for a full and whole family, all that crap that I was believing to be true. I am single, and I'm so satisfied in my singleness. I am the poster child of being single. I am so happy, and I'm not mad for those who want to be in relationships. That is fine. I just know that I've been by myself for so long. I wouldn't want to do that to nobody. It's not fair to them, because I don't want to share. I don't want to compromise. I love my space. I am so happy with who I am. And I've never been. So in over 40 years, I was never ever happy with who I am. I was never happy with who I saw in the mirror, the voice that I heard coming back. I wasn't. And so I am now happy with who I am. And that is worth way more than all the other crap that I believed to be true before.
Amen.
I love it. I'm gonna buy you some sexy woman toys to celebrate.
Oh my Lord, child.
Ooh, we're gonna do an episode on
Oh
our
Lord.
adult toys. All right, Leandra.
Oh, don't forget about Actory Consulting Partners. I'm just saying. I had to cut that off. We're not going there right now.
Yes. And I am a partner in Actory Consulting Partners that I
Oh, don't be fake about it. If you rather talk about toys, don't be fake.
I'm not being fake. I would love to speak on the beautiful work that Actory Consulting Partners does. And so I have what, Kendra? What?
I'm not asking you to speak more. I want to let people know that you're also a partner in our business.
I am a partner in Actory Consulting Partners, which is, we're a trio. It's Kendra, Danelle, and Tanika. And we also take on singing engagements as well. And so I am.
The devil is a lie, and ain't no truth in them. She know one key, B flat, and she don't even know what it sounds like. She just know how to say it.
Don't do her like that.
Yeah, and you are also our producer, Soror.
Yes. I became a Zeta, a finer woman, as of last year in the graduate chapter. Oh, and I am the social action chair. And so today I get to do a training in 30 minutes. I'm doing a training for the Western PA Zetas related to political engagement. And so the do's and don'ts, and I was able to put that together and pulled team of some other sorors from different chapters. And so I'm excited about that. I'm excited. I enjoy serving. And I became a Zeta because of the serving aspect. And the last piece is that in Western Pennsylvania, we have 3 chapters. We have 3 graduate chapters. and they're split by geographical location. So we have different service areas. And even though I live in one service area, I chose to seek membership in an area called the Mon Valley area. And my why for that is because of me coming back to Pittsburgh. I ended up moving into the Mon Valley area, and I talk about being at my darkest moment, and I was in a very abusive relationship. And the scariest part of it is that I didn't realize I was being abused. And then until one day it finally hit, and the Mon Valley is what helped me. The Mon Valley served me well. And the Mon Valley gets a really bad rep on the limited resources and the low rates of graduation and the high crime and all those things. But what I can say is that the Mon Valley served me well. The Mon Valley was there for my children, and the Mon Valley got me into a safe space. And there was night court, there was virtual, and there were all these things that were put in place. And so my why for becoming the Zeta and being able, and so I get to serve in the Mon Valley. So I'm so excited to be able to go back to that place. Kelly, and these tears, if you don't stop.
Listen, menopause brings about a whole new lack of regulation of emotion. Let me just say
I know that's right.
However, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
In all the ways. So kudos.
I am not affiliated with any sorority, but I will say that and all of our chapters or all of our, Divine Nine are great in Pittsburgh. The men do great work. The Qs do great work. Kappas are doing great work. The taking kids, the HBCU, like our Divine Nine in Pittsburgh are very active and great things. But I will say, and it's not just because I have lots of friends, including two of my best friends, 3 actually, because Maisha is also in the chapter with Tanika. But the Zetas are very active in their service, like to the point where I'm like, what y'all doing now? They are about that service life for sure. So shout out to them and all of the Divine Nine in the Pittsburgh region.
Kudos.
Thank you.
We are the divine nothing.
Divine all things.
Oh, I like it.
All things.
All things.
Any takeaways, Tanika? Anything you would like to ask us before you go?
Why did it take you so long to start this? This is so necessary. And your voices needed to be heard a long time. I'm grateful that we're here, but why did it take so long?
Life. I mean, yeah, it just, so many things kept getting in the way, and we finally had to say, like, we're going to push through, even though life is going to continue to be what it is. But I do believe when it launched was probably when it was supposed to. And so I don't know if that's about our individual work that we had been doing or just where we are in our own growth journeys. But I would say life is why it took so long.
And we got smart. The same way I had to find me a millennial to help me finish my dissertation. I had to find that same millennial to help us do our podcast. Because if it was up to us to like be editing all this stuff, we would still be trying to figure out what to do with the first episode. Period. Pooh. Yes.
Shout out to you, Leatra. Thank you.
So Tanika, do you want to do something unconventional? You was joking at the beginning, but would you like to close this out in an appropriate prayer? Don't go on. I mean, you ain't got to, not the old mother of the church prayer, just a little something.
I would love to. Thank you for asking me. God, I come to you just thanking you for bringing us all together. I thank you for allowing us to have the ability and access to you directly and not having to go through anyone to get to you and to go to you straight and direct in our authentic way. I thank you for the gifts that are on these cubes on this screen, God. I thank you for the decisions that we have all individually and collectively made that got us to who we are now, God. And I thank you for the boldness and the courageousness of Kelly, Kendra, and Leatra to be able to move forward and to do what some may not understand. I thank you for allowing them to be able to be used. And I thank you for giving them the voice and the language to speak and to disrupt and to educate, but to still equally love. I thank you, and I'm asking that you will just continue to bless every single thing that they touch, everything that comes across their desk, in their professional lives, in their personal lives, God. I ask that you will just continue to allow them to be their authentic selves and that nothing and no harm comes upon them. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. The doors of the church are now open.
Come one, come all, come as you are. Thank you so much, Tanika Harris.
You're so welcome.
For joining
Thank you
us.
for having me. No, this was great. Thank you for, I haven't shared. So this is like the first time I was able to like really share in this type of space. So thank you for letting me do that. This was healing. This is a good time to sing. There's enough to go around. Ooh,
oh my God.
So why you holding people down? This is Kendra's song.
We appreciate you. And thank you for making this the most churchy episode to date. And putting the womanist theology in this womanist work. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I say it like that is Kendra's mom, but like, you know, I'm an orphan now. Like I don't have no parents, and I literally like Kendra's mom and Danelle's mom, they take care of me. Like they are my parents. And so it's a different type of thing that I have. You know, it's a different feeling and it's a different love. And they were two people that when I got pregnant at 15, a lot of folks in the church told their kids to not be around me because as if like they were going to get, it was like contagious. And that was not the case with Ma Lola and Mama Biggs. And I know they didn't. I know it probably didn't feel great, and I'm sure it was a little sadness because like they had these high hopes for me as well, but they never ever turned their backs on me, and they never told their children not to talk to me, and that was huge, especially in that church that I was serving in. You know what I mean? So I joke about it, but like Ma Lola is my mom too. Like she still takes care of me. And my kids and the great so yeah.
Ooh, that one took me over the edge. Thank you for lifting up the power of Black women in church. Even sometimes when we come across as hardened, I think it's always because we know what that experience was, and so I'm glad that you have Black women who were able to show up for you. So yeah.
Here. Black women saved my life. Shout out to our mothers, my grandmothers, both who are deceased. Shout out to Jean Bryant. Shout out to Cherry Wiley. Shout out to Shirley Jean. We speak your name. And on that, I'm getting off of here. Y'all gonna have me crying all night. I'm not doing this with y'all.
Ooh, child.
I don't have no tissue. I didn't think I only got a messed up napkin.
This is like grab your hanky episode, y'all. Get your hanky ready.
Them Chipotle napkins are the worst. That's just gonna tear your whole face up.
Oh, and I gotta be finer in the 15 minutes.
Yeah, go get yourself cleaned up.